Hello, hello! It must be surprising to see this bullet journal video up so early and before the new month begins. I'm actually headed out for vacation in California soon, so I needed to get this video filmed, edited, and uploaded before then since I will be away from my computer. I've been planning to do this theme in my bullet journal for almost a year now, but I didn't really think about how I wanted to make it until the last couple of weeks or so. My theme is based on the song Magic Shop by BTS, and I wanted to incorporate a lot of elements that dealt with their art and VCRs during their Magic Shop muster back in 2019. Magic Shop is also a really special song to me because it was one of the first few that I fell in love with when I started listening to BTS and is still one of my favorites to this day. I took the concept from their digital art of the Magic Shop door on their Instagram and wanted to recreate it in my journal as the cover, and I love the idea of having the doors open to reveal the Magic Shop itself. Amanda Rach Lee inspired this opening door spread from her fairy tale theme in May, and it was a really cool coincidence that she did a cozy book theme for her bullet journal this October, since I feel like my theme has similar cozy vibes. So to start off the spread, I folded the pages inwards to make the door and then cut off the extra pieces of the pages that I didn't need. I was initially going to cut across the entire page, but based on how one of my Dutch door spreads went last time, I decided it would be better to leave all of the middle of the page intact and to just glue it down later. Now, in comparison to some of my previous bullet journal setups, the cover in and of itself had more doodling involved than probably all of my last few themes combined. I normally go for very minimalistic themes because of how quick and easy they are, but this month I wanted to challenge myself and to push myself to draw more. I recently became a Twitch affiliate and unlocked the ability to start designing emotes and sub-badges, so I guess you can say that that was part of my motivation to start drawing more. I started out by using a ruler to draw out the lines on the door to make a wood pattern and then used crisscross lines to make the windows look like glass. I ended up drawing the handles on the door, but you'll see that I just wanted the outline for where I would draw the door handles in gold later. For most of this design, I had a hard time deciding what part of the page I wanted to work on, so I actually jumped around pretty often, like going back to color in the windows. I then tried to copy the design from the digital art above the door, but I had to simplify some of the shapes because I wanted to use gold for this design as well. After that, I started working on the rest of the outside of the Magic Shop using my ruler. To be honest, I don't think the perspective is quite right on this drawing, but I've never been very good at perspective drawings, so this was good enough for me, and I'm happy with how this turned out. On the right hand side of the page, I drew a door sign that says Magic Shop in Korean, and I pretty much tried to draw their little logo design for the muster. The only thing I replaced was adding the number 7 where the BTS logo would go to resemble the number of members in BTS and also to be like an address, and wrote October 2021 on the sign. The nice part about all of the different aspects of this page is that if I got tired of drawing and outlining, then I would move to coloring and vice versa. After finishing the door sign, I went on to color the door and used a brown tombow that was a shade lighter than the brown vine liner I had used to draw the door. I used a piece of scrap paper underneath when coloring near the edges of the page as well. When doing the next section, you'll see that I actually opened and closed the door a couple of times to make sure that everything that I was drawing was even. I drew the area above the door a darker shade of brown to resemble if it were a shadow from being further back in the drawing, but I think you'll understand more once I finish coloring everything. I went back to outlining and drew 2 lamps on the building. A lot of this design came from looking at the image and using that as a reference for my own drawing. The nice part about doing these more cartoon-like drawings is that generally all of the objects are made from very simple shapes and lines. Like the lamp is made up of circles, ovals, and some straight lines. I guess you could say that about any drawing, but I would be happy to break down how to draw these designs more if you are interested. So let me know in the comments below if that's something that you would want. I quickly finished up with the rest of the lines on the building using a ruler, and then it was time to color. I used a dark gray for the lamp and then a light yellow inside. To give it a bit of a glow, I also just colored a small oval in the center of the lamp with the same marker to resemble where the actual light would be. I was initially planning on doing the same crisscross design of the windows as the door, but I felt like it wasn't super necessary to get the image across, so I decided to just color it a solid color. Then it was the easy part of coloring the entire outside of the Magic Shop the same brown color as the doors. I could have stopped here, but I didn't like that it had a white background when the song talks about the galaxy, and the lamps were colored in as if they were lit up, so I decided to color the entire background. I started with a sidewalk gray color at the bottom of the page. I wanted to get a night sky color that was not pitch black, but I didn't quite have the blue-purple color that I was going for. Instead, I layered 2 tombos. Since the pages of my journal are 160 GSM, they held up fine to the layering. I first used a dark purple and then a royal blue. Then it was finally time to get on with the finishing touches of this page, so I went ahead and added in the gold details to the door, 7 gold stars to resemble BTS in the sky, and used a pen to trace the design above the door. I went back in with a white pen to add a mix of larger stars and dots for smaller stars. The dots kind of look like snow though, so I'll leave it open for interpretation. The white on the BTS logo seemed a bit out of place to me considering that the rest of the page is colored, so I decided to just color that part in gold as well. I'm actually in love with how this cover turned out. I've also never done a full illustration on a page in my journal, so it makes me happy that it came out how I imagined. Moving on, it's time to add the small doodles to the inside of the magic shop. Similar to the outside cover, I took a lot of inspiration from the BTS Muster VCR, so I wanted to include as many doodles from that as I could. Since the VCR in Magic Shop has an antique vibe to it, I wanted to mimic those cozy antique vibes. So after drawing the counter, I drew a lamp on it. After searching it up, this style of lamp is actually called a banker's lamp. I also drew a little bell and then I drew a jar on the other side of the counter, but I'll be drawing a feather pen in the jar later. On the wall above the counter, I drew a calendar for October. This doesn't quite fit into the antique vintage feeling, but I still wanted to incorporate something that would be useful for my bullet journal. Initially, I was going to draw my monthly calendar here, but then I decided to do another full-page drawing because I love the idea of opening the doors to the magic shop and actually seeing a magic shop on the inside. Next to the calendar, I drew a floating shelf with books, a plant, and a little magic potion bottle. To be honest, the potion bottle has nothing to do with the BTS VCR, but I wanted to incorporate the color purple and to make it seem more like a magic shop rather than just a vintage bookshop. So the potion bottles were a perfect touch in my opinion. On the right hand side, I drew a giant floor plant in front of a window with curtains. This fit perfectly because it was the same size window as the windows from the outside of the door earlier. Then on the left-hand side, I drew a cute little bookshelf with some of the similar doodles I drew earlier of books, potion bottles, and plants. This time though, I added a doodle for a teapot and teacup set because some of the lyrics in Magic Shop talk about drinking warm tea and looking up at the Milky Way. Once I finished the outlines, I just colored all of the doodles on this page. I initially planned on keeping the tea set and the curtains white, but something didn't quite sit well with the rest of the drawing, so you'll see later that I decided to make them a light blue instead. As you watch this quick time-lapse of the coloring, I just want to talk a bit about the song and what it means to me. BTS has always been known for making songs that have comforted people, and this song is definitely one of them. In the song, they are addressing that people do go through pain and sadness, but they want to say that they see that pain and want to replace it with comfort. This song was made during the Love Yourself era, and it was written and produced by Jungkook. I think it truly embodied that idea that loving yourself is not just about loving one aspect of yourself, but rather loving yourself as a whole. It is also a promise from BTS saying that they want to show us all sides of themselves, including the ones that show their personal hurts and pain, and in return they want us to share ours with them so that they can comfort us. They know a lot of people have troubles that they are going through, and BTS doesn't try to play that down, but say that they see it and that they're here to comfort. To me, this level of vulnerability and care in crafting their songs is one of the things that sets BTS apart from other groups. And this metaphor of a magic shop being a place where you can trade in that pain and sadness for comfort is exactly what this song is. Now in comparison to the doodle-heavy part of the setup on the cover, the rest of the spreads are minimalistic and relatively easy to follow. The first page I'm starting on is the trackers. I went ahead and wrote out the title at the top of the page in a serif font. Then after that, I drew a vintage design for the corners of the page. I mostly combined a lot of swirls to get this design down. Next, I drew the tiny potion bottles because I had a bit of leftover white space that I didn't know what to do with. I actually changed up the design a bit for the potion bottles because I didn't love how they looked on the other page. This design gives it a bit more of a 3D aspect, and I will of course link all of the inspiration in the description down below. Also, you can't quite see it well on camera, but I actually used 2 different shades of purple in the bottles to give it more dimension and shading. Afterwards, I went ahead and drew the outlines for all of the trackers, and I drew a key in the bottom right because I will be using the last tracker on this page to track my mood for the month. I actually ended up keeping all 8 trackers from the previous month because I think it helped to hold me accountable for streaming and editing more frequently. And that is it for this tracker page. Like I said, super simple in comparison to the first page. I'm not actually sure what to call the following spread. I was initially planning on making it a 1 line a day spread, but then I guess it came out more like a brain dump page. The whole concept of the song Magic Shop is about trading your sadness and pain for comfort, so I guess this page is intended to be a page where I can write down my worries or anything that I'm feeling the need to write down. I also wanted to incorporate the lyrics "So Show Me," so it worked out better to be a brain dump page. Keeping with the vintage feeling, I drew a scroll and wrote out the lyrics using the same serif font as the previous page. Then I drew a red feather on the page. I didn't like how it was just an outline of the page, so I decided to add some light brown and this yellow tan color to the page, where the light brown is for the back of the page and the yellow tan color is for the front of the page. I was originally planning on coloring the entire front of the page, but the red from the feather started bleeding, so I settled for just outlining the page and coloring the top. This leaves the white section for me to write down anything on this page. Looking at these spreads now, I don't know how I managed to sit myself down and do a full illustration on the cover page when these spreads are so quick and easy. Anyway, I am finishing up this video with one last spread. This is actually the return of my 1 week weekly spreads. I actually did 2 week weekly spreads for the rest of the month, so you can stay tuned because those will be in a separate video. But for this one, I drew a blank on what I wanted, so I took inspiration from Amanda Rachley's March bullet journal with a floating shelf. She drew plants on her shelf, but I incorporated different doodles from my magic shop on the shelf. I started out by lettering the word October at the top of the page, and since I'm still not quite confident in my calligraphy, I decided to just fake the calligraphy and thicken the downstrokes individually. Then I drew the book, plant, and tea set doodles. I wanted to incorporate more of the BTS Magic Shop lyrics, so I drew a picture frame in the top right corner. I'll complete the rest of the lettering frame later, but it will read the translated lyrics, "You'll find the galaxy inside you." Next, I quickly drew a rough outline of the floating shelf before coloring in part of it. For the sections of the weeklies, I drew the little potion bottles where I will be writing the dates down. Then you'll see that I got distracted very easily, so I decided to color the doodles at the top of the page. On the lettering frame, I just chose colors of the galaxy, and even though they don't blend super well together, I like that adding the spots of gray, blue, and purple just made the frame look really cute. Finally, I went and divided up the sections for the weekly with a section towards the top of the box to write out my events. I actually initially planned to make the section of the boxes smaller for the Saturday and Sunday section, but after a mistake, I decided to just keep rolling with it and to keep them the same size. I added the dates on the potion bottles with a gold pen before writing the days at the top of each box. Then finally, the finishing touch was coloring the floating shelf. I almost wish that I had used a lighter color for the shelf, so instead I brought out the month by adding a white drop shadow to the lettering. I also added some gold and white stars to the lettering frame, which I thought were a nice touch. After that, I also went back through the journal and just added some additional gold sparkle drawings to the page randomly to add to the magic aspect of this theme. With that, let's take a final look at the setup. I really love the Magic Shop theme for this month. It works perfectly with October and Halloween around the corner and adds some cozy vintage vibes to welcome in the fall weather. BTS also announced that they will be headed to LA for a concert, so I do hope I can see them live soon. That will be it for this video, but I hope that while you are here you could find a little bit of comfort and relaxation. Of course, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this theme, and be sure to tag me in any recreations. I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!